We return to the world of The Wizard of Oz with Wicked for Good, directed by John M. Chu, starring Cynthia Erivo, as well as Ariana Grande, Jonathan Bailey, and Jeff Goldblum. This film is the second act of the hit Broadway musical Wicked, as we wrap up the journeys of Elphaba and Galinda, and this one is a treat. So we're going to talk about this movie and help you decide whether or not it's the right one to watch as a Christian right now. Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Tim, and we exist to help Christians live in the world, not of the world, by utilizing our convictions in the movies and shows we watch. Wicked for Good is rated PG for some action and violence, as well as some suggestive and thematic material. So we're going to dive into any convictions you may have that may prevent you from watching this movie, any theological themes present within it, and then wrap it up with my own personal thoughts on Act 2 of Wicked. Without further ado, let's dive into the Christian Conviction Meter. If this is your first time here, the Christian Conviction Meter is a series of 5 convictions that may distract or hinder your relationship with Jesus. Ultimately, this is a guide, tool, and resource to help you figure out whether or not Wicked for Good aligns with the convictions that God has given you. And kicking things off in our first category, just like the first act, the first part of this film with Wicked Part 1, this one continues in the mild fantasy action. It does dial it up just a little bit. There's a little bit more action within this film, a bit of some hand-to-hand combat or just fighting in general. There also is lots of crashes, fire, some explosions here and there. At the same time, too, there also is a lot of uses of weapons, like guns primarily, but there really isn't any sort of gunfire that is contained within this movie. All of that to say, just like the first part, we are going to give this a 2 out of 5 here. Our next category is lust, and there's a few things to note with this category. The first things to note here is that there is a song that is very kind of sensual, a little suggestive. There isn't anything crazy that happens. It is a PG film after all, so that is something to keep in mind here. But it is pretty suggestive at times. There also is a sequence later on where 2 characters are lying in bed together. The male character is shirtless. It implies that they slept together. At the same time, too, we do revisit the affair dance sequence that occurs in Wicked Part 1, and it is not necessarily broadened all that much, but it is touched on once again. All of that to say, we are going to give this a 2 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is substances, and while there is no smoking or explicit drugs contained within Wicked for Good, there is a bit of alcohol use here contained within a little green flask. We don't know exactly what type of drink it is. It's kind of described as an elixir, but the way it's used is very kind of alcohol-esque. And so just to be on the safe side here, we are going to give this a 1 out of 5. Our next category is profanity, and while there is no profanity contained within the film, there is the use of God, and there also is the use of the word shiz as a play on words for the SH word. So that is something to keep in mind here, but there is no explicit profanity or curse words used within this film. It's going to be a 0 out of 5 in this category. And wrapping it up with intense/horror scenes, this is not a horror movie. It is PG after all. And so there is not going to be any explicit horror images contained within the film. That being said, there may be some intense sequences throughout the film. Some of the musical moments can be very impactful and very intense, very powerful moments within this film. There also is some minor animal cruelty that is part of the film, as well as some sequences of some characters transforming or being wiped away, in which there's some screaming and pain that is a part of these characters' transformation. At the same time, too, there also is some sequences of which a character is to believe to be gone. And so you see the emotions that wrap up within that. And there is, of course, darker themes that is continued from the first half into this next half here, which of course deal with a fair, trying to fit in, and grappling with really just public perception. And so all of these things are part of the film. It is definitely, I would say, a little more intense than the original half of the film. And so we are going to give this a 3 out of 5 in this category. So our grand total on the conviction meter is going to be an 8 out of 25. Well, it is a little lower on the conviction meter. It is pretty moderate in its intensity, and it is pretty mild in most other categories. There is a bit more suggestiveness in this one, so that may be something to keep in mind, especially for younger viewers. All of that to say, if anything we talked about compromises your convictions in any way, shape, or form, make sure to utilize the convictions that God has given you. No movie is worth compromising your convictions over, so make sure to follow those convictions, my friends. That leads us into our next topic as we dive into some theological themes that are present within Wicked for Good. And just like the first half of the film, there is no explicit themes about Christianity, the Bible, the church contained within Wicked for Good. And that, of course, is just broad strokes with this film and with the musical. There is nothing explicitly Christian about Wicked. So all of that to say, what are my thoughts on Wicked for Good? I know the anticipation for this film was soaring. It was sky high, and it is hard to sometimes live up to those expectations. I am not saying the film is bad by any means. I just want to get that out of the way. Just prefacing that sometimes it is hard to live up to high expectations, but I do think this film aims and shoots for the stars, and I think it does overall a really solid job here. The story overall is solid and consistent. It maintains the same level of consistency that we see from the first act with Wicked Part 1, so I'm glad to see it carries over into this one. All the songs are really, really good, of course, For Good being the main highlight here. Another thing to note is that they do introduce a brand new song done by one of the original writers, Stephen Schwartz, called No Place Like Home. It's okay. In my personal opinion, it's a little too pop for Wicked. That's just me, though. It doesn't necessarily have the same tone as the rest of the music. Lyrically, though, it is a solid song. Visually, just like the last half, this one is stunning. It is visually great to look at. The colors, the contrast, the sets, the CG overall is solid. However, there are a few scenes in this film in which the CGI is not all that great. They try some de-aging tech in this one, and it doesn't fully land. And just like the first half, this one is really well casted. They added a few new actors, namely Coleman Domingo as the Cowardly Lion, which he only has a few lines within the film, which was surprising. All that to say, still very well casted. I love the fact that your two leading characters, right? You have Elphaba, you have Glinda. Each of them have their own film, right? Elphaba was very much the center focus of Part 1, and Glinda is the center focus of Part 2. We get a little bit more of her backstory. We see a little bit more of her. She kind of becomes her own in this one, and she goes through her own little journey. And I love that they did that with this, because really Wicked is these two characters, and so them having their own kind of center focus in each of the parts, I think is really solid, and overall I think was a really great way to bring these characters to life while also continuing to expand the lore, which overall does flow very nicely alongside the musical. And overall, I think it is a very enjoyable film. It's gonna be a crowd pleaser without a shadow of a doubt. It is an epic conclusion that aims high, it shoots high, and I think for the most part it succeeds. There are a few things here that I'm not the biggest fan of personally, namely a few CGI things, and a bit of the pacing could be slightly better. But again, this is a part 2. This is not necessarily an explicit sequel. it's a part 2. You dive right into the story from the jump. There is no stopping. It's all gas, no brakes with this film. And overall, like I said, I do think it is enjoyable. I had a blast watching this in theaters with a bunch of other fans of the musical and of The Land of Oz, and that just made for a great theater experience overall. Some good laughs, some potentially tear-jerking moments. Overall, a fun time at the movies. All of that to say, we are going to give this a 8.6 out of 10. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I still think part 1 is slightly better, but this one is really good as well. So overall, it is a 8 out of 25 on the conviction meter. It's an 8.6 out of 10 in our review. Those are my thoughts. So let me know yours down in the comments below. What do you think of Wicked for Good? Let me know that all down below. And while you're down there, consider hitting that like and subscribing for us, joining our community here on YouTube. It just helps to send us out into the algorithm, allows us to reach more Christians, to help them utilize their convictions to ultimately continue to follow Jesus and pursue him with all we have. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with us here. We truly appreciate it. It means the absolute world to us. But before you go, there's a few video recommendations that YouTube is suggesting to you, one of which is Wicked Part 1. So if you want to see my full thoughts on the first part of Wicked, it is going to be right here. We'll see you all in the next one.